Get ready for a mind-bending journey, because this video is about to challenge even the most serious seekers of knowledge who yearn to unravel the creation accounts in Genesis. We are diving deep into Genesis 1 through 3, where you will find the captivating twin creation narratives of the Bible. My last video on Genesis 1 through 3, we showed potential mythical antecedents to the Enuma Elish, Epic of Gilgamesh, Atrahasis epic, Song of the Hoe, and I'm talking about an instrument that is used in agricultural farming, and several other Mesopotamian connections, but there may be better parallels to the Greek world. Now hold on tight, because biblical scholars have long attributed these accounts to two different authors, drawing from the well-known documentary hypothesis. In the first account, Genesis 1, we witness the awe-inspiring creation of the heavens and the earth emerging from a primordial chaos, all meticulously laid out within the span of 7 days. This narrative prominently features the name Elohim, representing God in the P or priestly source. But then the plot thickens as we shift gears to Genesis 2 through 3, transporting us to the enchanting Garden of Eden. Here, we encounter tales of animal and human creation, the fabled tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the origin of sin and death. Notice how everything is initially crafted as very good in Genesis 1, only to watch and witness the entry of sin and death into the world in Genesis 2 through 3, all attributed to a deity with a different name. Isn't that intriguing? It bears a striking resemblance to Plato's creation accounts, and we'll delve into that connection together, so brace yourself. For centuries, these twin creation stories with their distinct divine names, Yahweh Elohim in Genesis 2 through 3, have been regarded as separate accounts written by different authors, possibly centuries apart, eventually intertwined by a clumsy scribe endeavoring to preserve diverse traditions in the opening chapters of our Bibles. These stories, rooted in ancient Mesopotamian myths, form a picture of twin creation narratives combined by the biblical editors of Genesis. But wait, are things really as they seem? In the most recent book by Russell Gamerkin, a fascinating perspective emerges. Gamerkin proposes that Genesis 1 through 3 constitutes a singular, unified creation story divided into two parts, featuring not just one, but two distinct gods. The first is the supreme cosmic creator portrayed in Genesis 1, while the second is Yahweh, a lowly descendant and one of the biblical sons of God who ruled over the land of Eden. Intriguing, isn't it? This two-part creation story astonishingly finds its origins in a single Greek source. the renowned work of Plato called Timaeus, exploring the origins of the cosmos. So in this video, we will embark on a riveting exploration of Genesis 1 through 3, peeling back the layers of these ancient texts and uncovering the astonishing connections to Plato's ideas. Get ready to have your mind expanded as we challenge long-held assumptions and embark on a scholarly and intellectually stimulating journey through the Genesis creation accounts. Russell Gamerkin's revolutionary approach to the origins of the biblical text is anything but conventional. While most biblical scholars focus solely on ancient Mesopotamian sources, Gamerkin takes a bold leap and looks at the Greek sources as well. Yes, you heard that right. Greek sources. Why limit ourselves, right? Here's the thing. The earliest textual evidence for the Old Testament, or Hebrew Bible, emerges quite late, in the 3rd century BC, after Alexander the Great's conquest during the Hellenistic era. And during this time, the Jews had access to a treasure trove of Greek literature in the illustrious library of Alexandria. So why not entertain the notion that the Bible might have been written as late as the Hellenistic era, drawing from Greek sources? Why should we turn a blind eye to the vast realm of Greek literature? It's time to expand our horizons. Over the years, I've had the privilege of interviewing some of the world's foremost experts in biblical studies, and an intriguing trend has emerged on the horizon. Archaeologist Jonathan Adler, renowned for his work on the origins of Judaism, has unearthed concrete physical evidence suggesting that this religion didn't truly flourish until well after the Hellenistic period, specifically during the Hasmonean dynasty and beyond. Adler makes a compelling point. There is a lack of archaeological evidence supporting the practice of the religion described in the biblical corpus by Jews or Israelites during the periods written about in this literature. In fact, he has said something like, there is zero evidence to suggest Jews were practicing this religion before the 2nd century BCE. He's open to being challenged, but the strong evidence points in his favor, as we do find ample evidence emerging during the 2nd century BCE, after the Hasmonean dynasty. Mark my words, more scholars will increasingly embrace the idea of Hellenistic composition for the Bible in the coming years. This is my prediction. I can see the writing on the wall. So while Gamerkin examines both ancient Mesopotamian sources and relatively recent Greek sources, it's the Greek parallels that often prove to be more captivating and persuasive. And what better example to illustrate this than the biblical creation stories themselves? Consider the creation account of Genesis 1. Gamerkin notes that creation myths from ancient Mesopotamia, and even many from the Greeks, are of 3 major types. So let's go over them. One of those types are theogonies. In the world of theogonies, we encounter texts that explore the origin of gods, depicting their genealogy, birth, and divine lineage. These mythic accounts portray a multitude of divine beings interlinked by family ties, with younger gods emerging as offspring of their elder counterparts. The primary aim of a theogony is to organize and trace the intricate family relations among these gods, revealing the mosaic of divine generations. One of the earliest, most renowned and authoritative theogonies preserved in written form is Hesiod's Theogony, which dates back to around 700 BCE in ancient Greece. However, the concept of anthropomorphic family groups of gods extends far beyond Greece, spanning across various civilizations in the ancient Near East. In Egypt, we witness the portrayal of gods in anthropomorphic family structures as exemplified in Plutarch's work on Isis and Osiris. Babylonia represents its own version of divine lineage in the Enuma Elish, while Assyria depicts these dynamics through the Assyrian redaction of the Enuma Elish, featuring Ashur as the replacement for Marduk. The Hurrians and Hittites contribute to this rich tradition with their epic of Kumarbi, and the Phoenicians, as evidenced by Philo of Byblos, add their unique perspective. The Canaanite Ugaritic texts of Ras Shamra, particularly in the Baal cycle, explicitly reveal similar themes of divine family connections. Notably, the Canaanite tradition of El and his 70 sons directly influences the biblical text. Here, the God of the children of Israel is often associated with either El, the ruler of the divine council, or one of El's sons. These echoes of divine familial relationships resonate throughout biblical narratives. For further exploration and detailed sources on the topics discussed in this video, I recommend referring to Gamerkin's book. It serves as a valuable resource shedding light on the origins and interconnectedness of these ancient texts. Now let us journey into Hesiod's Theogony itself. Within its pages, we encounter gods that are not mere rulers of the heavens and the earth, but rather embody the very essence of nature. Chaos, the first god, is followed by Gaia, the earth, and Uranos, the sky. These gods are not just associated with their domains, they are believed to be inseparable from the divine manifestations of sky and earth themselves. As Hesiod's Theogony unfolds, we discover a pantheon of gods descending from chaos and Gaia, including deities such as Hemera, day, Erebos, darkness or night, Helios, the sun, Selene, the moon, Oceanos, the world stream or ocean, Pontus, the sea, and many others. In this mythical account, theogony and cosmogony intertwine, as the generation of the world becomes intertwined with the activities of the gods, their companionship, and their role as parents. Natural phenomena, including the very essence of life, find explanations through the actions of these gods. While not explicitly detailed in the theogony, the life-giving rain is understood as the heavenly spermata that impregnates Gaia, the earth, bringing forth plant life after showers. Yes, you read that right. The imagery evokes the notion of the heavens and the earth engaging in a metaphorical union to bring forth life. Now you know a little bit about the enchanting world of ancient myths and theogonies, where divine generations and cosmic activities intertwine. From the genealogy of gods to the birth of the world itself, these narratives offer profound insights into the origins of existence, intertwining natural phenomena with the divine realms. Category number 2 are theogonies. Imagine a colossal celestial showdown where the gods themselves engage in an epic battle, a theogony, if you will. These divine clashes often had cataclysmic consequences here on Earth. But here's the twist. When one supreme god is defeated, paving the way for another to take the throne, we enter the realm of succession myths. These are stories about gods that likely sprouted from the historical replacement of one ruling cult by another, much like what happens when conquest or migration reshapes the power dynamics. And let me tell you, succession myths sometimes manifested as a series of ages, each marked by its own cosmic catastrophe. Take the Greeks, for example. They had the age of Uranos, where the cosmos itself burst into existence, followed by the age of Chronos, a golden era that birthed the race of humanity, the magnificent golden race. And then, brace yourselves, we have the age of Zeus, which witnessed the rise and fall of not just one, but 4 successive human races. We're talking about the Silver Race, the Bronze Race, the Race of Heroes, whose swan song coincided with the infamous Trojan War, and finally our current Iron Race. Talk about a tumultuous timeline. Now the shift from the age of Uranos to the age of Chronos didn't involve a full-blown theogony. No, it was a relatively straightforward case of good old parricide, killing off of the parent. Nothing too dramatic, right? But when it comes to transitioning from the age of Chronos to the age of Zeus, oh boy, buckle up for the Titanomachy. This was a full-blown war of the Titans, a theogony in all its glory. And guess what? The destruction of the Bronze Age of man orchestrated by Zeus also seemed to come with its fair share of cataclysmic upheaval. However, let's be clear, none of these Greek cosmic shakeups directly involved cosmogony itself, the creation of the universe. They were more about the divine power struggles and the changing of the guard. But hey, who needs cosmogony when you have feuding gods and awe-inspiring catastrophes to keep things interesting, right? In the mystical tapestry of the ancient Near East, we find the captivating Enuma Elish, a tell where gods clash in an awe-inspiring theogony. Here, Marduk, the valiant deity, squares off against Tiamat, the formidable primordial dragon representing watery chaos. But this battle is no ordinary divine scuffle. It carries within it explicit elements of mythical cosmogony. Picture this: Marduk and his forces vanquish Tiamat and her formidable army. As a triumphant display of cosmic craftsmanship, Marduk skillfully cleaves Tiamat's body into 2 halves, with the upper part becoming the vast expanse of the sky, and the lower part forming the solid earth beneath our feet. But Marduk's creative endeavors do not end there. From the blood of a slain, beheaded god, he breathes life into humanity and establishes Babylon as his glorious abode. Talk about divine multitasking. Moving forward, we encounter Berosus and his Babylonica, where he recounts Marduk's original mythological triumph, but he takes it a step further by presenting an allegorical interpretation that caters to a significantly literate Greek audience. In this version, Tiamat morphs into a symbol of the primordial darkness and water that existed before our present cosmos. This sounds like Genesis 1's demythologizing narrative. Marduk, in turn, is seen as the radiant sun or the embodiment of light. And those winds? Well, they likely represent the ethereal atmosphere bridging the heavens and the earth, a poetic nod to the forces that aid Marduk in his victorious campaign. Berosus adds a touch of symbolic depth by allegorizing the creation of humans from the blood of a fallen god. This act suggests that mankind possesses a spark of divine wisdom, an intimate connection to the gods themselves. A rather profound notion, wouldn't you agree? Now, it's worth mentioning that not all Akkadian theomachies ventured into the realm of cosmogony, but when they did, oh boy, the cosmos became a stage for celestial battles, divine craftsmanship, and allegorical musings on the nature of existence. The ancient Near East truly knew how to infuse their mythologies with intellectual flair. In that realm of ancient cosmogonies, the gods of Canaan have not left behind preserved narratives. However, within the Ugarit Baal cycle, a window opens to an intriguing tradition where theomachy, the divine battle between gods, illuminates the origins of the world. In this cycle, the valiant Baal emerges victorious over Yam, the embodiment of the unruly sea, while also triumphing over Mot and Lotan. These triumphs suggest a rich tradition that perceives the creation of the world through the lens of divine conflict. Moreover, echoes of older Canaanite traditions reverberate through the conquest of Rahab and Leviathan, enigmatic sea dragons within biblical texts. The battles between Yahweh and Rahab in Job 9 verse 13, as well as Yahweh and Leviathan, bear the markings of a bygone mythical cosmogony, a glimpse into a time when the origin of the world was envisioned as a theomachy, a clash between gods. What unites these battles of cosmic significance is a recurring motif, an embattled deity, a conqueror facing off against a sea creature that embodies the forces of watery chaos. The battle between God and Rahab alludes to us in various biblical texts, most notably in Psalms and Job, yet curiously, the cosmic battle motif remains absent from the renowned Genesis 1:1 to 2:3 account. It seems the author consciously chose to strip it of its mythical potential, leaving us to ponder the significance of this omission. Thus, as we delve into these ancient mysteries, we encounter a big mosaic woven with divine conflicts and primordial chaos. The battles between Marduk and Tiamat, Baal and Yam, and the biblical god and Rahab or Leviathan offer us glimpses into the human fascination and imagination with cosmic struggles. In these monumental clashes, the conqueror faces off against the chaotic forces of the sea, shaping the very fabric of existence. While the battle between God and Rahab is alluded to in biblical texts, the cosmic battle motif remains concealed within the Genesis account, leaving us to contemplate its significance, a captivating enigma that invites further exploration. However, the lack of this mythical theomachy in Genesis 1:1 to 2:4 should have us ask whether Berosus and Plato's creation accounts have something to offer us. Palatial world myths. In this type of mythical cosmogony, the world as a whole was envisioned in architectural imagery as a palace or temple laid out and constructed by a god pictured as a king who ruled the cosmos. Such cosmogonies typically featured mythical geography on a world scale that mapped features of the visible and invisible world to architecture features of a royal construction. In the book of Job, the portrait of God as divine designer and architect of the world, plumb line literally in his hand, is explicit. The foundations of the world palace were laid deep in the invisible underworld. The earth itself was the interior of the palace, its roof of sealing the sky above. The heavens might be conceived as a solid surface constructed out of beaten brass or iron, or as a tent-like fabric spread out across the skies, depending on the form of the construction envisioned. The pillars that held up the sky were usually conceived as distant mountains located at the ends of the earth. As ruler of the universe, the king of the gods was usually pictured as dwelling in a throne room in the heavens. Consequently, the heavens were sometimes pictured as the floor of the celestial throne room constructed of jeweled crystals. As was typical of royal palaces, the divine palace or temple contained numerous storerooms for its treasures. In both the Hebrew Bible and in 1 Enoch, these divine treasures were pictured as storehouses containing the elements such as rain, snow, and hell. In this mythical conception of the physical world, various windows were opened in the sky to allow servants of the divine ruler to allow in rain, snow, hell, or winds. Gates in the east were opened to allow the entry of the sun, moon, and stars, which were transported across the heavens by the angels to whom they were entrusted. And other gates in the west allowed their departure from the sky. Other gates or stairways allowed passage between the heavenly realm and earth. In the Palatial world myth, the ruler of the universe was often pictured as presiding over a divine bureaucracy of lesser gods or angels who acted as royal servants, scribes, and bureaucrats. Divine royal servants were pictured as having been charged with supervising the natural elements and ensuring the orderly operation of the cosmos according to the king's directions. Such cosmological speculations assumed an earlier mythical cosmogony in which the world palace was constructed and its bureaucracy put in place, even when the antecedent story of the architectural design and building of the cosmos has not been preserved. Yet, Genesis is none of these types of Mesopotamian or Greek creation myths, as we covered all three. Instead, as many biblical scholars note, Genesis 1 is largely demythologized, brief, concise, with a minimum of story and many scientific explanations, like the cosmologies of the Greek natural philosophers from Thales to Plato. Indeed, as Gamerkin notes, Genesis 1 is strikingly reminiscent of Plato's Timaeus, a partly mythical, mostly scientific account of the fashioning of the cosmos by the supreme, eternal, monotheistic God of creation that Plato calls the demiurge or craftsman. This craftsman or creator God, who dwelled outside the material universe, took the original primordial chaos postulated by all Greek philosophers and transformed it into a beautiful, orderly universe, good and perfect in all respects. The craftsman started by separating out the elements of earth, water, air, and fire or light from the primordial chaos, rendering the universe visible. He assigned solid land, water, and air to their proper regions, with the fiery sky up above in the dome of the firmament, setting the sky spinning above the earth in a new sequence of day and night, thereby creating time. He then fashioned the sun and moon and set them in their proper places in the sky. He created the various orders of life, the creeping and four-footed animals of the earth, the birds of the sky, and the fish of the deep, the exact same categories found in Genesis 1. And he rejoiced over his creation, declaring, "It's supremely good, like himself." Finally, he rested from the work of creation, happy to oversee the beautiful world he created from his distant, eternal dwelling beyond the heavens. Gamerkin notes the systematic parallels between Timaeus by Plato and the creation account of Genesis 1. Let's take a look. I want you to pay attention to the similarities and comparisons between Plato's Timaeus and Genesis here. Both have beginnings in chaos and darkness, introduction of light, introduction of day and night, separation of earth and skies, dome of firmament, separation of earth and seas, creation of plants, days, months, and years, creation of celestial bodies, creation of sea creatures and birds, creation of land animals, creation of humankind, completion of the cosmos and the creator at rest, creation of mortal life by the gods, which leads into another chapter in Genesis. He makes the case that the God Elohim of Genesis 1 was modeled directly on Plato's supreme, eternal, monotheistic God of creation, the demiurge or craftsman. And indeed, that the later monotheism of the Jews and Christians originated with Plato's Timaeus. But what of the second creation account of Genesis 2 through 3? The story of Yahweh and Adam and Eve. Gamerkin's new book points out that Plato's Timaeus actually had two creation accounts. You see, Plato had a problem, a big problem. His monotheistic philosopher's God was perfect and eternal, and everything he created was also perfect and eternal. But humans are profoundly not perfect, flawed, and tragically mortal. How could a perfect eternal God create mortal man? And wouldn't this make God responsible for human wickedness? Plato's solution was brilliant. First, Plato made the supreme monotheistic God of creation, the ancestor of all the traditional gods and goddesses of Greek myth. In doing so, he endorsed Hesiod's theogony that traced the genealogies of the Greek gods, starting with chaos, heaven and earth, except that now the original ancestor was the demiurge or craftsman of creation. Second, Plato had the eternal God of creation delegate the task of creating life, including humanity, to all his sons and daughters. In a scene that introduces a strong element of the story of myth, Plato had the craftsman gather his sons and daughters around him and instructed them on how to make humans out of the material elements and plant a soul in them, making them a mixture of the material and the divine. After creating humans and other living creatures, the gods were then put in charge of the earth and of humankind, while the monotheistic God of creation retired from the scene, leaving the world to be ruled by his sons and daughters. According to Russell Gamerkin, this is exactly what we see in Genesis 2 through 3, where Yahweh, a local terrestrial god, one of many of the sons of God mentioned in early Genesis, ruling his little corner of the world, the land of Eden. Already in Genesis 1:26, we see the gods, plural, making humans in their image, male and female. The gods of Genesis, it seems, also included goddesses among their distinguished ranks. Why would it say, made in their image, male and female, if both were not creating on the scene? We later also see multiple gods mentioned in Genesis 2 and 3 in the sons of God who married the daughters of men in Genesis 6 and in the story of the Tower of Babel in Genesis 11. We thus see an endorsement of benevolent polytheism in Genesis 1 through 11, where multiple sons of God are living across the entire face of the earth, all of them good, but none of them the equal of the supreme eternal God of creation. Under this new model for understanding Genesis, Yahweh is not to be identified with the creator God Elohim of Genesis 1, but is one of the many minor terrestrial gods dwelling on earth, something also seen in the Exodus story, which acknowledges other gods ruling Egypt, Moab, and other nations, but claims Yahweh as the special God appointed over the Israelites. But there are no Israelites in the pre-flood world, and Yahweh is instead portrayed as the God of Eden, the ruler of the descendants of Adam and Eve. Yahweh was the Son of the Most High appointed over Jacob. Later, in my Genesis 10 through 11 video, we will mention the 70 nations of Genesis 10 and the 70 angels over the nations in the book of Enoch, one angel, or God, per nation.
When Elyon gave the nations their inheritance, when he separated humanity, he fixed the boundaries of the peoples, according to the number of the sons of God. For Yahweh's portion is his people, Jacob his allotted heritage. Deuteronomy 32, 8 through 9.
Fun fact, the Greek god Prometheus reminds us in many ways of Yahweh in Genesis 2 through 3, and that both are pictured creating mankind out of clay. Prometheus was the Titan god of forethought and crafty counsel, who was given the task of molding mankind out of clay. Some accounts have Prometheus and Athena molding images out of clay and ordered the winds to breathe into them and to quicken them. Sounds like the breathing into the clay in Genesis 2 through 3. The attempts by Prometheus to better the lives of his creation brought him into conflict with Zeus. Firstly, he tricked the gods out of the best portion of the sacrificial feast, acquiring the meat for the feasting of man. Then when Zeus withheld fire, he stole it from heaven and delivered it to mortal kind hidden inside a fennel stalk. As punishment for these rebellious acts, Zeus ordered the creation of Pandora, the first woman, as a means to deliver misfortune into the house of man, or as a way to cheat mankind of the company of the good spirits. Sounds kind of like Adam blaming Yahweh for making woman once they ate the fruit. Prometheus, meanwhile, was arrested and bound to a stake on Mount Caucasus, where an eagle was set to feed upon his ever-regenerating liver, or some say heart. Generations later, the hero, that great one, Heracles, came along and released the old Titan from his torture. Prometheus was loosely identified in cult and myth with the fire god Hephaestus and the giant Tityus. The Book of the Generations of Heaven and Earth. Yahweh, one of the many sons of the Creator Elohim, but not Elohim himself. This picture is totally in line with Greek mythology, with Hesiod tracing the theogony or genealogy of the gods, starting with the primordial god Chaos and his offspring, the heavens and earth, Uranos and Gaia, and their various descendants. Plato endorsed this same traditional Greek family tree, starting with Uranos and Gaia, except that he made them the offspring of the creator of craftsmen.
Therefore, let the generation of these gods be stated by us, following their account, in this wise: of Ge and Uranos were born the children Oceanos and Tityus, and of these Phorcus and Kronos, Rhea and all that go with them. And of Kronos and Rhea were born Zeus and Hera, and all those who are, as we know, called their brethren. And of these again other descendants, Timaeus 40e through 41a. In truth, at first chaos came to be, but next wide-bosomed earth, the ever-sure foundation of all the deathless ones who hold the peaks of snowy Olympus and dim Tartarus in the depth of the wide-pathed earth. And earth first bore starry heaven, equal to herself, to cover her on every side, and to be an ever-sure abiding place for the blessed gods. Hesiod, Theogony, 116 to 128.
And as Gamerkin points out, Genesis 2:4 also has its own theogony, or genealogy of the gods. Genesis 2:4, Masoretic text.
These are the generations of heaven and the earth when they were created in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens.
Genesis 2:4, Septuagint.
This is the book of the origin of heaven and earth. Literally, the book of the Genesis of Uranos and Gaia, when it originated in the day God made the heaven and the earth.
Here we have the title of a new section in Genesis, the generations of the heavens and the earth, Masoretic text, or the book of the Genesis of Uranos and Gaia, Septuagint. Similar to later sections in Genesis with titles such as the generations of Adam or Noah or Shem or Isaac, but in this case we have the generations of the heavens and earth, just like in Hesiod and Plato's Timaeus, a family history of the gods. It may be significant that in various ancient extra-biblical traditions, El Elyon, the Canaanite Most High God, was also the ancestor of the heavens and earth.
The interpretation of heaven and earth as gods may be supported by the Sapphire Treaty, which lists as witnesses El and Elyon, heaven and earth, abyss and sources, day and night. A fragment of the Phoenician history of Philo of Byblos was quoted at Eusebius' Preparation for the Gospels, 1:10-15. Elyon, that is Elyon, was said to have been the father of Uranos and Gaia, who in turn had many other offspring. Gamerkin, Plato's Timaeus, in the Biblical Creation Accounts, 164.
Yahweh then is not the creator, but one of the many lesser sons of God. Gamerkin points out that in the story of Genesis 2-3, Yahweh appears in a very limited role, not as cosmic creator, but as a terrestrial God who fashions animals, plants, and humans like the sons and daughters of God in Timaeus. And exactly like Plato's Timaeus, Genesis 2 through 3 is profoundly concerned with the questions of human wickedness and mortality. According to Gamerkin, it seems evident that the Yahweh in the story of the Garden of Eden is a lesser order of God. Yahweh lives not in the eternal realm beyond the heavens, but in the earthly land of Eden. He dwells in this earthly paradise among the humans he created, much like the Greek gods dwelled on earth in various Greek mythical accounts. He strolls in the garden planted for his enjoyment, smelling the fragrant breezes in the cool of the day, an almost human picture of pleasure and contentment. And far from omnipotent, he is surprised to find that Adam and Eve are hiding from him. He calls to them,
"Where are you?"
and finds they were suddenly embarrassed at their nakedness.
"Who told you that you were naked?"
he asks. And after a lengthy interrogation, Yahweh learns about the serpent and that Adam and Eve have eaten from the forbidden tree of knowledge of good and evil. One sees virtually the same scene repeated later on when Cain has murdered Abel. Yahweh grills Cain, peppering him with questions.
"Where is Abel? What have you done to him?"
Yahweh is neither an all-knowing nor all-powerful cosmic God. In fact, Yahweh is only one step above being a poor, fallible human himself, different in only one respect: his immortality. Thus, Yahweh tells his fellow gods they must evict Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden.
"For behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever."
Yahweh decides the man must be driven from the garden and guards posted to keep him forever outside. This same theme, the jealousy of the gods, is found in Timaeus 41c, where the Creator says he cannot create humans himself.
"For if by my doing these creatures came into existence and partook of life, they would be made equal unto gods, in order therefore that they may be mortal."
His sons and daughters were charged with fashioning these living creatures. Gamerkin points out many other parallels between Genesis 2 through 3 and Plato's various writings. According to Plato's statesmen, the first humans had no need of clothes and were able to converse with animals. In this same Platonic text, the earth spontaneously produced food for the first humans, allowing them to lead idyllic lives free from toil, pain, or disease until God later became displeased with them. In Timaeus, Plato likened sex to the fruit of a tree, which humans have an insatiable appetite for. And in Protagoras, Plato said that humans, even though they possessed a full knowledge of good and evil, Plato's exact words, could still be tempted to bad deeds by their appetites, passions, and the enticement of the senses, just like in Genesis. These and other Platonic themes appear throughout Genesis 2 through 3. For Gamerkin, this points to the late date and long ignored Greek influence on the biblical text. Plato's Timaeus, his famous dialogue on the origins of the universe and human life, provides the key to finally unlocking the mysteries of the biblical stories of creation. Sons of God and mortal women. Get ready, my intrepid explorers, for the next exhilarating chapter in our grand odyssey through the captivating convergence of Plato's ideas and the enigmatic tales of Genesis. As we continue our journey, we shall adventure deeper into the mystical realm of gods entwined with mortals, where desire and consequence intertwine like the threads of fate. Prepare to be enthralled as we unravel the enigmatic narratives of Genesis 6, were God's surrender to temptation and mortal women, ultimately setting the stage for the cataclysmic flood of Noah. Oh, but the connections do not end there. Brace yourselves for a mind-bending exploration of how these profound events resonate with the legends of Atlantis and other Greek myths. For a deeper dive into the topics discussed, don't forget to secure a copy of Russell Gamerkin's illuminating book, a treasure trove of knowledge. Subscribe to MythVision to ensure you never miss a moment of this extraordinary series. Show your appreciation by liking the video and sharing your favorite part in the comments below. Let's ignite a symphony of noise to please the YouTube gods. And if you're truly captivated by the profound revelations we uncover, consider joining our family. You can join MythVision's Patreon by becoming a patron or become a YouTube member. Together we shall support and nurture this sacred quest for knowledge. Remember, my friends, we are MythVision, bound by a shared passion for uncovering the mysteries that lie beneath the surface of ancient legends and philosophies. Onward we march in search of enlightenment and truth.